talk to you about inspiration. To me, the key attribute of any leader in any country is to inspire. When you think of the great leaders in times gone by, not leaders of great armies, but great leaders, Mahatma Gandhi, JFK, Martin Luther King, Nelson Mandela, and now the new American president, Barack Obama. All these people inspire. They make us better than we think we are, and they inspire us to do great things. All these leaders have inspired me throughout my life, but something else has inspired me, and that's been the ocean. The ocean has been a terrific source of inspiration to me. It's been a terrific solace to me. It's been a refuge to me. And I wanted to talk to you a little bit today about the simple lessons that I've learned about life and I've learned about inspiration from being involved with the ocean. Never fight a riptide. This is the beach that I grew up in, Durban, South Africa, a place called the Bay of Plenty. And you can see on the right-hand side of the picture, there's an area the waves aren't breaking. This is called the riptide. It's a very dangerous place. If you're a swimmer, you get caught in the riptide, you get sucked out to sea, and you can drown. If you panic and you're not aware of the dangers of this riptide, there's a good chance that you will drown. The riptide, as a metaphor for life, represents these inexorable trends that are running through society. And we all have to be aware of these trends. The economic downturn, the failure of the mortgage securities in the United States. One must be aware, but one must not panic and let these basic trends overwhelm us. This little concept was really brought home to me as an athlete. In 1977, I was the #1 surfer in the world, and the guy on the right, wearing the really short shorts, was my rival. We were locked in a death fight, the two of us, for the world title. And also we were in a battle to see who could wear the shortest, tightest shorts. And I think I might have got him there. I'm on the left, and this guy, Mark Richards, is on the right. Mark had invented a brand new type of surfboard, a surfboard with 2 fins, and on the left you'll see my type of surfboard. It was a board with what we call the single fin. So this twin fin was a unique technological advancement. It was new technology in the context of the surfing world. I was the world champion, Mark was the runner-up that year. And I could see him surf on this new technology. I could see the effect it was having on his surfboard, and I could see the future. I could see that this guy was going to have a profound impact on the sport. But I refused to accept the reality of that situation. And for 2 years, I continued to compete on my single fin board while he went off on this amazing success run on his twin fin, and ultimately he became a world champion 4 times in a row. But the simple lesson for me there was sometimes reality is right there in front of you. Sometimes you can see it, but dogmatism, ego, and stubbornness prevents us from making the right decision. And certainly for me, it prevented me making the right decision. And ultimately, once I got in the twin fin, I started to succeed again as a competitor. But that lesson was rammed home to me for 2 years. Dogmatism, stubbornness, and not accepting reality just does not work. Take the drop with commitment. Commitment. A very, very powerful word. This is the Banzai Pipeline in Hawaii, the single most dangerous wave in the world. It's killed about 23 people. Every year, 1, 2 guys die at the Banzai Pipeline. And for me, this wave was always the ultimate challenge. As a young boy growing up in Durban, the Banzai Pipeline was this revered and feared wave. It was a wave that I always wanted to succeed at, but I was terrified of this place. The first time I surfed out there, I sat out in the water for half an hour and didn't catch a wave. It was absolutely terrifying. Then I managed to get a few waves. I got drilled on the coral reef. These waves come out of the deep Pacific. They rear up on the shallow coral reef, and they just impact on the coral. It's a very, very, very dangerous place. So I started to surf it a little bit more, surf it a little more, little baby steps. And it took me about 3 or 4 years when I started to feel a reasonable amount of confidence out there, but never in the class of the great Hawaiian surfers at that particular time. Then a young South African guy made me this sort of revolutionary type of surfboard. The board looked like a banana. It had a lot of curve in it. We called it the pink banana. And I walked down the beach at the Banzai Pipeline with this particular board, and all the Hawaiians laughed at me. They laughed at me. They said, "Shaun, where are you going with that pink banana?" It was very humiliating for me. And I went out on the board, and I took off on my first wave, and this board fitted perfectly into the steep face of the Banzai pipeline, and it gave me this confidence. So I had this little bit of extra confidence, but still I never had the confidence to become a champion. I continued to ride, and then I had this revelation. One day out there, it was a very, very big day. This enormous wave came towards me. I was very frightened, and I remember swinging around and starting to paddle for this wave. And I was in that moment of hesitation that we all have when we're faced with an obstacle or a challenge. And I put my head down, and I took 3 more strokes with absolute commitment. And that single wave changed my life. Because once I made the commitment, once I took the extra strokes, once in my mind I knew I was going to go over that edge, all the fear went away. It was incredible that commitment takes the fear away. We all have different fears, all of us. Fear of success, fear of failure. But when you take that step and take the drop with commitment, it's amazing how that fear goes away, that fear dissipates. And as a young boy, this was a wonderful moment for me to know that you make the commitment, you take the step, and the fear goes away. Always paddle back out. This is a picture taken at Waimea Bay. Back in the day, in the 70s and the 80s, this was considered the Mount Everest of surfing. You saw a bigger wave earlier, towed in by a jet ski, but we used to paddle into these waves by hand, and this was a very, very dangerous break. The waves would get 25, 30 feet. And my first surf out there was during a surfing competition. It was during the final of one of the biggest events in the world. And I remember paddling out there, and I was very determined to win this event. And I took off on the first wave of the final, paddled over this wave. It was about a 20-foot wave, took this very, very late drop, and the board went into space. And I landed, and in big wave surfing, you try to penetrate the surface of the water. If you don't penetrate the surface of the water, you're totally exposed. And I couldn't penetrate, and I remember skipping across the surface of the water, and this wave landing on my back with a terrific concussion, and I thought I'd broken my back. I thought I was a dead man. And eventually I got washed in, and I saw my board floating in the rip, and I paddled up to my board. And I had a fundamental decision to make on my board. What should I do now? All the other surfers had seen this terrific wipeout, and they certainly would not have thought less of me if I had have got on my board and paddled back to the beach. But I got on my board and I paddled back out. And by doing that simple paddle back out, it gave me so much more courage and confidence for the future. There were 6 of us in the final. I came 6th in the final. But to me, I felt that just by paddling back out, I was a winner. And this simple lesson has really helped me through business. I've been an entrepreneur all my life. I've started companies that have been very successful, that have generated hundreds of millions in sales. I've started companies that have been failures as well. And but I've always paddled back out. This notion of always paddling back out has always been so important to me. My wife, Carla, and I started a company, my beautiful wife's in the audience somewhere, about 7 years ago. We called it Solitude, and we'd recently moved to America. And the company started to grow and started to prosper. We started to sell in the finest stores in the land, Saks and Barney's and Bloomingdale's, Nordstrom's, wonderful stores like selling in Edgar's and Truworth's and Markham's. And we thought we were really on a roll. Then we hit a rough patch. And we ran out of money. We couldn't fund the orders. We had millions and millions of dollars in orders, and we were tapped out. So we decided to close down the business. So our friends came in and started dismantling the warehouse. All the furniture started to be moved out of and all the inventory started to be moved out. The last thing that was left was the company server and my workstation. This was all on a Friday afternoon. It was very, very hard and very humiliating for an athlete that's been relatively successful all his life. But I said, no, you can't take my workstation, you can't take the server. I just had this feeling. On the Saturday morning, I got a call from a friend of mine. He said, listen, I was at a baseball game, and a guy came up to me and he said, admired the shirt I was wearing. And he said, well, it's a Solitude shirt. They're closing the business today. And the guy said to my pal, my father and I are investors, and we love that brand. We've seen it around. We've seen it in the top stores. Maybe we can do a deal. On the Sunday, we did a handshake deal. Monday, we opened for business, and a few years later, we did a deal, and the company grew to 50 million in sales. And for me, that notion of just not giving up and always paddling back out helped me through that time when, should I shut it all down or shouldn't I shut it down? I paddled back out, and it went on to become a big brand in the United States. And it all came out of that simple notion of perseverance and paddling back out. There'll always be another wave. Surfing today is very, very crowded. Like the world, like competition, it's a very crowded place. I surf in crowded conditions like this. I was surfing a few years ago at a break called Rincon. And I was waiting my turn. I'd waited for half an hour for a wave. And like all of us, you wait in a line for the movie, you wait at a traffic light, you wait for promotion. There's a level of frustration. And as I started paddling for this wave, another guy paddled around me. And I thought, there's no way I'm going to let this guy have the wave. I took off, and I dropped in such a way that I made this guy wipe out. He fell off his board. I continued to ride, thinking, yeah. Surfed for another couple of hours, and I came in, and I was sitting on the beach. And a guy came up to me on the beach, and he said, are you Shaun Tomson? And in the surfing community, I'm quite well known. And surfers are generally very friendly people. And I said, yeah, thinking he's going to ask for an autograph or just want to chat to me. And bang! He hit me so hard, so fast, and with an incredible amount of power. I was at the army here in Hoogte, and I was in a pretty tough bungalow. And they used to say, if you can't hit him with a fist, hit him with a head, and if you can't hit him with a head, hit him with a hammer. And this guy hit me with a hammer. And it was so sudden, and I was so shocked. Here I am having a great day on the beach, and boom, he's hit me with a hammer. So I jumped up, and two of his friends came in, big chaps, and I thought, man, now I'm done. So I picked up a big rock, and I said to these guys, you come any closer, and I'm gonna bean you with a rock. And the fight dissipated, and I phoned up the police. The police came down, and ultimately the district attorney in the United States prosecuted the guy, went to jail. It was the first felony case for a surfing assault. So justice was served in some form of way. But for me, it really colored my experience of surfing. And I often think back to that day. I'm not the type of person that looks over their shoulder. One thing that surfing teaches you, if you're riding a wave, you look down the line, you don't look over your shoulder. But this particular incident gave me a lot of cause for thought over the years. And if I hadn't taken that wave, if I'd have known that there'll always be another wave, the experience would have been different. My life would have been different. His life would have been different. He wouldn't have been incarcerated. I wouldn't have been hit with a hammer. And I think there's a simple lesson there for all of us, is that in those moments of frustration, in those moments of anger, maybe it's best just to pull back and chill out and know that another wave will come through. And that's what I hope all of you here today are going to think about, passing along that stage. Thank you.